So welcome back to Toxic Workplace Behaviours. This is the final video and we're going to speak about micromanagement. If you've seen our last videos, we've looked at clusters of behaviours and I split the whole amalgamation that I've done down into 3 different clusters. So the first video that I did in this series introduced what those 3 clusters were. I then did 3 videos on the 3 different clusters, and this is the end video to basically summarise everything for you. So the previous clusters or the previous videos have been entitled Look at Me, False and Fake and Useless. They are in a playlist, so if you have come across this video and you haven't seen them and you want to see them, just click on the playlist and they're all there and they'll play in order for you. The reason I did this is because micromanagement isn't always obvious, and the way people micromanage isn't always the same. So there tends to be clusters of things that tells you A, is it toxic, or B, is it just that they're not aware leaders or not aware managers, or they're being given no training and therefore their confidence in running a team is a little bit low, so their way to compensate for that is to micromanage. So that it could be something as innocent as that. It could be something where you're being bullied, you don't understand that you're being bullied, but something just feels off. I'm trying to give some context around that with these videos to see if that is the case, and what you can do about it, and what actually is a wise step to take about that. Because if there's only you that feels it and nobody else can see it, that can leave you in a very tricky position, and it's a really unpleasant, tricky position because it makes you feel like you're going crazy, and that's the last thing you need, especially when you go to work to earn a living so you can have fun outside your job. You know, that might sound very privileged in the world that we live in, but ultimately that was the whole idea of, you know, having society structure, is that we went to work and then at the end of work we had resources then that we could use to enjoy and unwind and relax. And that is the point. So that is the point of the privilege, and you don't go to work to be bullied or to have something feel off or to not be able to speak up, because you're not left to be able to do your job, or you're not trusted to do your job, especially if you know you're more than capable, and you're just not getting the cooperation you need sometimes, especially if you're working within a team. So I'm just going to quickly summarise the video. So if you do want to go and watch them, this will give you an idea of what it is that you're looking for. So the cluster 1 was Look at Me, and that is all about the person that's peacocking. So you'll find a lot of people peacock. It's in the way they dress, they hold themselves, and they may be quite flamboyant, quite charismatic, and that might be natural. It might not be anything to worry about at all. But if it's done for the aim of getting attention and then controlling that attention, then it's no longer just a person's natural charm, it's fake. And that that ends up walking into territory like they're faking conversations with you, they're wanting you to notice them all the time so that you can show them appreciation, and they're really just garnering the attention that they get from you and then the feedback that you give them as a result of that attention. So that brings us nicely on to number 2, which was fake and false. And this is where we get things like flying monkeys involved, is that people, they suddenly talk to you, they suddenly give you attention, they suddenly start praising you for everything, because they're wanting it reciprocated. And it's just a mirroring effect, and it's a really insidious thing because it looks so innocent, but it feels so wrong. And without being too woke about this thing, this isn't feelings over facts, and facts aren't brought about by feelings. But if you have a feeling about something, there's usually a reason for it. So actually having a space to explore what that feeling is and why it's there may tell you, actually, do you know what, I just didn't feel safe for this reason, and it's actually nothing to do with that person. Or, do you know what, genuinely that person just isn't safe, and now that I've had these feelings and I've been able to look a little bit deeper and explore a little bit more things, I can now see factually why these feelings actually have some merit, and they're definitely things that are still there. They're not just my own protection mechanism, as it were. So this is really important, that you don't a mistake fact for feeling or feeling for fact, but you do use them to complement each other to find out actually where the truth behind what's going on and what you're feeling lies. That's really, really important. And when I say flying monkeys, I mentioned this at the end of video 1 and I think of it in video 2. The flying monkeys are when you can see and feel that something's wrong, you've got enough evidence that to you is pretty concrete. But everyone else around you is agreeing with this other person that you feel you're being bullied and psychologically harmed by. And then because you're the only one feeling it and seeing it, you feel like you're going stir crazy because everybody else, well, they're so charismatic and charming, and it's just who they are. They've always been that way, which isn't helpful to you. And there's one thing, I study body language and behaviour and psychology and all these things, not from an academic point of view, which is why I keep what I say to a layman's level, because I'm not qualified to say too much. But I am going to use this quote from a guy called Greg Hartley. He's a former army interrogator and a resistance to interrogation expert and a behaviour analyst. And I've watched a lot of his stuff, along with a few other people, but there's something that he goes back to and he says a lot that really, really resonates with me, and it's the organism does what makes the organism successful. So your repeated behaviours are something that's helped you manage and cope through life, and that might be fine. Your coping mechanisms through life might mean you're overly empathetic, you're overly careful, you're overly people pleasing or whatever else. They're things to discuss with a therapist if so you wish. But when someone's got these coping mechanisms and they're doing harm to others, i.e. they're reflecting other people back to other people, and then when they're being called out for it, they're saying, well, this has all come from you. All I'm doing is saying, what I see. This is all you, it's not me. It becomes really disarming to the person on the other end that thinks, well, I get what you're saying, but it still doesn't make sense because it's like a mashed up version of you that they're throwing back at you. But their coping mechanism has led them to a space where actually that's their reality. So they're probably on a personality spectrum disorder, something like MPD or ASPD, which is your antisocial and your narcissistic. But that's not from me or for you or anyone else to diagnose. You've got to be really, really careful with this, and they're not necessarily diagnostic criteria. They're clusters that help you recognise things. In saying they're clusters, the clusters that I've put together are my own recognition. They haven't come from psychology or anywhere else. They've come from my own recognition and my own understanding of academic interpretations of things, and the fact that it's just becoming more widely discussed and talked about, which I think is a really, really positive thing. So what I really want to get through to you is, if something feels off, without being woke and being called a snowflake or any of those things, it is all right to speak about it. If you feel like you are being bullied, singled out, called out, and everything just doesn't feel right to you, but on the surface it would look just fine to everybody else, that isn't necessarily you going mad, and you do need somewhere to go with that, so you don't think you're going mad. I've spoken to people who have been on this and on the receiving end of this, and the first thing they say to me is, do you know what, Samantha, I'm not really the kind of person that gets bullied, as you can probably tell. And do you know what, I'll say the same to you. I'm not the type of person that you would think would get bullied, but I have been. And the people that I've spoken to have been unaware of it because it's insidious. And this is the really important point to know about this phenomenon. It is insidious because it is a caricature. And caricatures are not nice things to be up against because they don't hold any authenticity. So it's just a surface. It's literally just a surface that you're having these interactions with, and that's why it feels just a little bit odd. So coming on to that, some people do not have masks of safety, so they mirror yours. So that really encapsulates that. We all have masks that we wear from time to time. To use this analogy, it's a very popular analogy, so I'll stick with it, because most people grasp what that is now. We all have masks that we wear in different places, and then how we look and hold ourselves in different spaces with different people. This is normal because this is just saying, actually, within this space, this is how I feel safe, and then how I can interact in an authentic way in this space, and that's fine, that's genuine. For people that can't maneuver that from space to space in an empathetic and genuinely connective kind of way, all they're doing is looking to mirror some intensity from a person, and that will look to that particular person like, well, it's so intense, it's so real, it's and in relationship situations it's described as romantic soulmate stuff, which of course there is no such thing as a soulmate. It's just a reflective, it's a reflective thing. It's why you feel like you've known this person forever, or like they've known you forever. There's actually no truth in that. There can't be. It just doesn't make any sense. But that doesn't mean it doesn't feel that way. And this is why we've got to be careful with what we feel and what we know is true. We've got to, again, be really, really careful around that. So these personality disorders, coming back to that, they are becoming more and more hidden and covert, I believe. Again, I'm not an academic in this area. I have no statistical data on this. I'm not going to try and flabbergast you with this story and that story and whatever else. It is largely based on my experience and then the conversations that I've had with people who have had similar experiences, and people that you wouldn't think would have had similar experiences. And it's just really weird. It's changed their personality, it's changed their relationship within their nuclear family and extended family, with their friends outside work. It's literally changed everything about them. It's caused health issues and all sorts of other problems, which is why I'm so passionate, I suppose, about speaking about it and bringing light to it. You can't call them out directly. It always backfires. So the only other way to do it is have conversations and bring what it is and what it can look like into a space where people become more and more aware, which means they can get away with less and less. In saying that, there's a lot of coaches out there. There's a lot of people who are taking on qualifications of coaches, of mentors, of therapists even, that are learning the language around this kind of thing, around how to mirror stuff and get away with it. And so what they'll do is if you've got a workplace coach, for instance, and they're employed by the workplace just like you, they may be your line manager with a coaching qualification, and you've gone and you've mentioned something, say something just isn't right, and you've said this is how you feel, and then they've used all those feeling words back at you in a negative light, then that for me is a red flag. That's someone using their skills that they've learned from their qualifications to basically throw back at you why you're the problem, when you're probably not the problem. You're probably just a symptom of a problem, but it's easier to get rid of a symptom than it is a problem, generally speaking. So again, got to be really, really careful. Be on your guard. If you feel like any of this resonates or sits with you, try not to have the conversation in work. Try and have it out of work first, and try and keep a clear head about it, and start taking notes and really, really understanding what's going on and why and how you're feeling about it, because that will lay the foundation for you to know that you're not going crazy. So yeah, watch out for charismatics, grandiose statements, the all about me people, you feeling yourself that you're being isolated, or you're mentally on your guard around certain people or under certain situations, or that you feel like you're overutilized or underutilized at work, that you're put upon too much or not put upon at all, that you're being told one thing but another thing's happening, you're being fobbed off when you ask questions and nothing's really happening, because all these things aren't normal things. So I'm going to leave that there with you. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it brings, if you've not seen actually the videos and you feel that some of this kind of bit part makes sense to you, go back and watch the other videos, because they will help you make sense of everything that I've spoken about here. If you have watched the other videos and now you're watching this, thank you very much, I appreciate that. And for any video that you do watch, please like. I'm not going to ask you to subscribe unless you want to. Most of my stuff won't be around workplace toxic behaviour. My area of expertise is in wellness and wellness practice, but highlighting this is, for me, is a big part of wellness. So whilst I rather promote the positive stuff, I'm more than happy to talk about the negative stuff too. But most of my content is going to be more around integrating good workplace practices without just ticking tick boxes for mental health first aid and all that kind of stuff, without them actually being meaningful things that actually make people feel better and safe and more at ease in a workplace. So yeah, like, subscribe if you want to. If you want any details of anything that I talk about, they're in, I leave everything in the details of every video. So there's links to my website, there's links to research that I have found. If I've used research and I've used research notes, then the notes are there so that you can go and look for yourself and you can go and explore for yourself. And please, if you've got a comment to make, whether you agree with me or not, I'm more than happy to hear your comments, because again, I think this is about discussion. It's not about an agreement or a disagreement. It's about an open discussion, and it's about bringing all this kind of dark stuff back into the light, to use an overused phrase or an analogy. But yeah, so that workplace wellness becomes an actual thing and not just something that's spoken about. That's my goal with this. So thank you for listening and watching, liking, subscribing, whatever you've done. Really appreciate it. And if you feel it's going to help somebody else, please share it too. Other than that, I'll see you later.